Hi, my name's Tony Cotton, founder of Energy Conscious, and we're here today to share our experience implementing a smart DC lighting system that runs over Cat5 cable called LumenCache. This is the sixth and final in a series, and today we're going to talk about LumenCache Automation. So let's get started. So what home automation options are out there? Recall from an earlier video that we're fans of open source, hardware, software, or better yet both. And if it's not open source, at least we want it to be open for integration with products from other vendors. And although we wanted to explore new technologies, we needed to stay on a tight budget. So we researched many big name platforms such as Lutron, Control4, and newcomers from Apple and Google. Our biggest concerns were how proprietary is the system, how invasive, and how much would it cost as the system scope grows. Everyone's going wireless. It's all about convenience. But may convenience be killing us? I was originally enamored with wireless, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and then later with the mesh technologies, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and the like. Now I could have signal everywhere, no quote dead spots. But there's a downside. As any good engineer should, I set out to update my knowledge on RF impacts. There are two rapidly expanding pillars of today's computing platform: wireless technology and the cloud. Most people are unaware of the growing body of evidence suggesting that there are EMF health issues. For instance, did you know that DNA is a fractal antenna? In the show notes, I have links to several video clips discussing the EMF health concerns of wireless technologies. For instance, there was a recent TEDx talk. The presenter was an engineer working in Silicon Valley. He was electrosensitive, and he started noticing symptoms such as sleeplessness, increased agitation, brain fog, headaches, etc. The issue is that we already have this kind of a problem. My concern, as I have included in the show notes, is there is a bigger rollout plan called 5G. 5G is specifically targeted at this new emerging IoT, or Internet of Things, the smart home that we're talking about today. Now, this is not what we need, and this is the exact reason why we are interested in getting the signals out of the air and onto the wire in your home. The other Trojan horse is cloud dependence. The latest cool factor is Alexa and Siri. Both of these voice activation technologies are cloud dependent. In my opinion, we don't need AI for language recognition just to turn lights on and off. And we surely don't need to send every detail of our activity to be monitored, stored, and analyzed, all while living in a sea of microwaves. In our opinion, a smart home is not very smart if it's not healthy and not locally resilient. Enough of my soapbox. Recall from an earlier video that we had selected Homeseer Pro Model 3 on the Raspberry Pi 3. The Pi is a single-board quad-core computer with a full Linux stack, and all for just $35. And although Homeseer was not open source, it's relatively open for integration. And their strong emphasis on autonomy from the cloud was right up our alley. Now we have our automation controller. How do we talk to LumenCache? Recall from an earlier video that LumenCache offers an RS-232 to RS-485 cable. Just tie it into the PDM COM bus. Perfect, we're connected, but we couldn't find any Homeseer plugin for LumenCache. It was time to roll up our sleeves. Digging around on the LumenCache website, we found their API. This is a detailed description of how to send commands to LumenCache switch pucks. As you can see, it's just a simple ASCII string interface for sending commands and returning device status info. All we need now is access to the Raspberry Pi COM port. Homeseer had no problem sending LumenCache commands, but we did run into issues returning the responses. Recall from an earlier video that we were using the Homeseer scripting model, not their full-fledged .NET/Mono plugin. The problem was that Homeseer was expecting a Windows-based model for the COM port, COMX, where X is a number. In the Linux world, a serial port is defined as a string, /dev/tty/USB0. Another Homeseer complication that we ran into was getting their mobile client called HS Touch to run on our Pi touchscreen. The Raspberry Pi and HS Touch supports Win10, their IoT core, but Linux, their version of Linux, was only in beta, so it was a little bit of a struggle. We easily got a Homeseer Touch running on our iPhone, but we wanted a cheap Pi-based wall mount touchscreen. In our frustration, we stumbled on a product called NodeRed, which is an IoT platform that comes pre-installed on the Raspberry Pi, the later versions of it. After a quick tour, we decided to take a crack at connecting it to our LumenCache system. After just 1 hour, we were sending LumenCache commands successfully. And after another hour, we had LumenCache responses coming back. That sealed the deal for us. It was on to NodeRed. NodeRed is a message-based platform, and it's programmed via a browser-based dashboard. Simply drag and drop the nodes onto a flow and wire them together. There are plenty of online training resources regarding NodeRed, so we are not going to get into that. What we will focus on are those specifics that we needed to drive our LumenCache system. Here we see the NodeRed dashboard. To the left is the library of quote nodes. In the middle is the canvas where you build your flow. And to the right is a combination of node properties and runtime feedback. Simply drag and drop the nodes onto the canvas, set their properties, and wire them up. The heart of interacting with the LumenCache system is the Raspberry Pi's serial port. Careful inspection of the LumenCache API reveals two distinct response formats, a command response and a device request response. Here we can see the command response, paren 1,255 end paren. That's telling us that switch puck 1 is in the full-on state. However, the settings response is brace 2, 5, 1, etc., 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 end brace. And this is returning all the specific device settings for switch puck 2. The key here is that there are two unique response formats, one enclosed in parens and one enclosed in braces. In this NodeRed flow, we can see the two serial port treatments and their respective response parsing nodes. There's probably a cleaner way to do it, but we were in a hurry and we just used the out-of-the-box serial nodes. Another head scratcher we ran into was how to paste the LumenCache commands. We needed to avoid dumping them onto the serial port, especially during system initialization. We can see here on this flow the stagger commands node. This guy is to meter out the settings requests 1 per second to avoid overloading the serial port. Another big difference between NodeRed and Homeseer is that NodeRed is a browser-based UI. Amen. As far as I recall, I thought that was the initial driving force behind the web in the first place. Everything was browser-based. Here we see a simple UI with a group for each room. Off, dim, full-on buttons, as well as a level slider. And here we see our NodeRed flow for the hallway. You can see it includes a button, label, and slider control from the quote dashboard library on the left-hand side. Each UI element sends data to build a LumenCache command, which is wired to an outbound serial port denoted by the gray outbound link arrow. The response is returned via an inbound link and adjusts the label accordingly. Once our LumenCache automation is up and running, how and when should we interact with it? Primarily, we'll be using the wall switches. We could add timed events, say a scene for wake up, one for dusk, one for bedtime. For example, our wake up scene might include a light ramp in both the parent and child's bedroom, gradually waking them up. And maybe we also throw on the kitchen lights to boot. Notice in this flow, the sun events node. It's pretty cool. It's a packaged node that varies the sunrise and sunset times based on your specific lat line. We could also use occupancy sensors, which act as dynamic switches for whenever a person enters or leaves a space. This could avoid physical taps in the bathrooms, for instance. They have ambient light sensors, so that precludes them from turning on and off during a sunny day. You could, however, adjust the behavior via NodeRed, say overriding this daytime sensor at a party. In our opinion, a well-implemented home automation system should be invisible, functional, yet in the background. So we have switches, occupancy sensors, and local touch screens. Our final touch point is remote access. Here we see my iPhone access, potentially to adjust our outdoor lighting while we're away on Christmas vacation. As long as we have a browser-based device, we can access our LumenCache system from anywhere. It does not require a specific app. So what should we take away from this video? For us, one of our primary objectives was to move the RF for the control signals onto the wires. We wanted to avoid cloud dependence. To us, that maximizes our local resilience. And the smart home is only smart if it's healthy and locally resilient. Be smart about your smart home. We believe your home can be energy conscious.